here we are on Voice of the Vatican. I welcome Teresa Kettlekamp with here today.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here.
So you are a staff member of the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors at the Vatican.
Yes.
Would you tell us about your role and about the mission of the commission?
I would love to. The Pontifical Commission was started in 2014. The idea was born probably a little bit before that, a little bit before Pope Francis was elected, by the College of Cardinals. The College of Cardinals were prioritizing key issues for the church, and the protection of minors was one of those key issues. So then upon the election of Pope Francis, they brought this issue to his attention as a priority for the Universal Church, and he agreed. And so a commission was established. Cardinal O'Malley of the Archdiocese of Boston was asked by the Holy Father to head the commission. Monsignor Oliver, who was then at the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith as their promoter of justice, an excellent canonist, by the way, he was asked to be a commission member, and he was also then elected or appointed to be the secretary. There were initially 17 members. One is currently on a leave of absence, and one resigned for personal reasons, but there are 15 active members on the commission, outstanding people from all over the world. We have the former Prime Minister from Poland and who was the ambassador to the Vatican. We have a Baroness from England. We have psychiatrists. We have children experts. We just have a wonderful array of experts to help the Holy Father. Let me back up a little bit. Their role is as an advisory board to the Holy Father. And what their job is to help the Holy Father with suggestions from them on how best the Church can protect children around the world. The focus would be on local responsibility. This is not anything where there be dictates from the Vatican, but part of my responsibilities is to help develop international guidelines. And there's wonderful child safeguarding guidelines out there. So I work with the working group leader, Bill Kilgallen from New Zealand, and have helped establish international guidelines, and we have vetted them through the commission members. And so that's one thing we're doing to help protect minors. So that's a suggestion that will probably be wrapped up into a proposal.
Would you talk to us a bit about these guidelines and give us an idea of what a diocese might implement from this?
Well, the number one focus is the healing of victims. There's probably about 5 major areas that should be included or are recommended to be included in a diocesan or Episcopal conference's guidelines. Now, they can be adapted to a particular culture, because what works, well, what I found, to go back, what I found in the United States, what works in one archdiocese might not work in a little diocese. So you have to adapt resources and what the needs are and personnel, etc. But there should be, in the guidelines, one key section is reaching out to victims and helping them heal. And it really kind of, you walk with the victim, because every person's healing is different, and it is a healing. I'd like to just comment, because there's been a criticism, why does it take so long for victims to come forward? And I think there's a misunderstanding of victimization. It's a scar on the soul, and for many reasons, victims don't find their voice, don't find the courage to come forward until years after the event. So I think we as a church need to respect that and help the victims where they are now, whether the victimization was 10 years ago or 30 years ago. Another key area is responding to allegations of abuse. How do you respond? There are canonical, administrative, and legal ramifications? How do you respond that will most minimize the trauma to the victim again? So that's that response, how it's handled within the diocese or Episcopal conference. That's another key aspect. Developing a safe environment, safeguarding. And that's one of the things we're focusing on. What do you need? What does the diocese need to do to develop a culture of safety? That those people to whom the church allows access to the children in the diocese, they're safe to be around those children. The other key issue is formation. Initial formation, ongoing formation of the priests, because we have many men of integrity. We want to keep it that way. And I can speak for the U.S. problem. The bulk of the abuse was from the late 60s to the early 80s. Mm-hmm. It's not a current issue, but one of the things the Commission has done, it's re-intensified the focus of the Holy Father on men of integrity, a culture of safety. So for the Holy Father to establish this Pontifical Commission, put a cardinal in charge, it sends the message to all the dioceses, all the seminaries, that this is important for him and for the church. Yeah, so those are the key areas. I think there's probably another one that I forgot, but.
Mm-hmm. Well, Teresa, the church has become really an exemplar in its reaction, in its setting of these standards. Would you speak to us a bit about how the church has really set an example to other institutions across society as a way to react to such a horrible problem?
Well, I think one of the initial keys is the church has acknowledged the problem. If you don't acknowledge you have a problem, then you can't sufficiently address the problem. So the fact that the Catholic Church in total has acknowledged, because I'm talking from the Vatican perspective, so that gives the Catholic Church in total the acknowledgement that there is a problem, that sends a message to other people to look within their environment and see if there's not some healing and work they could do as well. Just because a conference or a diocese says, we don't have this problem here, I would say to them, you don't have this problem brought to your attention. Abuse of children, whether it's sexual abuse, just domestic abuse, has been happening for years. And I think, I can't speak for God, but I think God just said, I'm tired of this. I am tired of seeing my little children hurt this way, and I am going to set something in motion to address this. Yes. And that's why we have safeguarding issues. That's why we have victim assistance. That's why we have a new focus on formation, ongoing and initial formation, and the integrity of priests. So I think God puts a lot of responsibility on those people who are part of his effort to keep the world a better place for children. And, heaven help the person who doesn't heed the word of God. I do think that God is sending us a message that his children are important and very special to him, and we're to do everything we can to keep them safe and help them grow into a healthy, happy adult.
Yes.
Yes.
Teresa, would you talk to us a little bit about what it's like on the ground for people within a diocese or for men within a seminary, and how things have changed for them there in the implementation of rules like this or of new protocols?
Well, let me take it separately. Mm-hmm. I think taking on the ground for safeguarding, the church in those areas where they have strong guidelines, and this is one of the areas where the Commission is helping. Some diocese Episcopal conferences have strong guidelines. Their concern is one of complacency. Some have a little bit weaker, and hopefully we can help strengthen those. And maybe some, due to societal issues, civil war, that's really not top on their priority.
Sure.
But those who do have safeguarding guidelines, they involve things like training. What is abuse? You think that would be common sense, but not everybody. So many types of behavior have been normalized.
Sure.
That the children don't realize they're being abused because it's normal, a normal part of their life. And it's part of their, just their environment, whether it's stress, whether it's poverty, whether it's just kind of a discipline issue. But its education is important. What's healthy behavior, what's not healthy behavior, all based on the premise that we're made in the image and likeness of God. And that's the key, that if we look at little children, look at older people, look at ourselves, our brothers and sisters, we're all made in the image and likeness of God. So protecting them through background investigations of those who have access to children, educating children on what they, what is appropriate, what is not, educating parents, educating teachers, whatever the environment is, educate them not only what abuse is, but what to do if you suspect it, legally and morally. I mean, there's hopefully the two blend together, but there are a couple of considerations there. Now, going over to formation, I think what we're seeing is a more kind of a stronger emphasis on the human formation. On the formation side, in the seminary, there are 4 pillars of formation: spiritual, human, intellectual, and pastoral. I think the 3, spiritual, intellectual, and pastoral, were given good emphasis, but maybe not the human formation, because that's just one area that I don't know if the church was comfortable in discussing, or it just wasn't as well known. I'm not sure, but I think the emphasis now is as strong on human formation as it is on spiritual, intellectual, and pastoral. And how do you maintain being a healthy human being? How do you maintain healthy intimacy, you know, in your calling of chaste celibacy? And to discuss that and discuss the challenges that our men will be faced with. One of the things I always talk about is you can never discount the evil one. The evil one is hard at work at our men of integrity because they are such warriors for the Catholic Church and warriors for our faith. So they need to keep their 4 pillars strong, not only in the development of those pillars, but in the ongoing formation. Keep their prayer life strong. Keep themselves close to the Eucharist and develop a community to strengthen them. And then if they start going off the tracks, you know, help them get back on the tracks if their prayer life is getting a little lax. Because what we found is those who have problems, their prayer life is the first to go.
Yes.
And it's the last to get back. And so you need to keep the prayer life strong. And I would say that for all of us, but to maintain men of integrity for the Catholic Church, to be our pastors, our chaplains, our bishops, our archbishops, their prayer life, no matter how busy they are, needs to be strong.
What would be resources that men of integrity could reach out for, seminarians, priests, whomever, if they find that they are in need of help in this area?
Well, every diocese has a vicar for clergy, and I think that would be a good point of resources. And every priest should have a spiritual director. I'm not sure that they all do, but I know they do at the seminary. That's something that I would highly recommend maintaining and meeting with monthly or every 2 months. Prayer groups are resources because you have to work in an environment, not only them, but we too, in an environment of accountability, holding us accountable to be true to the tenets of our faith. So if we're finding our friend is too busy to pray, we talked about this before, if you need to pray half an hour a day, but if you're real busy, pray an hour. So
Right.
if we see our friends not having time to pray, maybe start a prayer group. That could be online, that could be in person over a cup of coffee. So the resources are there. There's a lot of readings, but I think if a person needs resources, then they need other people. Because you don't want a person to go into themselves, and then that's where you start kind of pulling away from your fellow man.
Sure. We have such a responsibility, don't we, to
do.
our fellow Christians and to ourselves to make sure that we are kept accountable
Sure.
and surround ourselves by the right people to help us do that. So true.
Yeah.
Teresa, would you tell us a bit about your own personal background, your work with the Illinois State Police, with the U.S. Conference for Catholic Bishops, and how that really prepared you for this role?
Well, God prepared me for this role.
Yes.
It was just real. Well, my mother says nothing's a coincidence. Nothing. So I stand on that. I spent 29 years with the Illinois State Police. Loved the job, retired as a colonel, and I retired purposefully to do audits for the Catholic Church when they started the audits of their charter for the protection of children and young people. The charter was adopted by the bishops in 2002, and then audits started in 2003. So that's when I started to do the audits, which, working in a male-dominant environment, all of whom were in uniform, and moving to a male-dominant environment, all of whom are in uniform,
Right.
was a pretty easy transition. The audits were a great way to get to know the charter, to get to know a number of dioceses and a number of bishops that, we had a tendency, I think, in the United States to kind of put a black cloud over the entire church, and that was so unfair, because as I audited and traveled among the dioceses, I met a lot of men and women of integrity who were just warriors for Christ. And you cannot paint the entire church with one brush.
Sure.
It's a couple people made serious mistakes. Well, a number of people did, but for the most part, we had a solid church. So then the lady Kathleen McChesney, who headed the office, the Secretariat of Child and Youth Protection, she left, and I was selected to take her job. So I moved to Washington, D.C. and was there for 6 years. So that was another perspective, and being in that position, I met with a lot of other Anglophone conferences, English-speaking conferences on the same issue to see where our commonalities were. Also, prior to my tenure with the bishops and then during my tenure, we had 2 major national studies by John Jay College of Criminal Justice. One was the nature and scope, and that was just to get our arms around the problem in the U.S., which is if you don't know the problem, then you really don't know how to attack it or fix it or get resources. And then the second was nature and scope. Why did we have this problem? And it was a complexity of influences it's not just one thing, and that's a whole nother discussion. So I did that, and then as right as it felt to take the job with the bishops, it felt right to leave. So I left, and I went back home. I have a house in Springfield, Illinois. I have 2 children there, and I was there for a couple years, and then I just felt on my heart I should send Monsignor Oliver an email and offer to help. I know, it seems incredulous.
It's
and I
amazing.
just sent him an email saying, this is what I've done in the past, and if I can help, I'll be happy to move to Rome. And I was willing to do anything, even open mail and triage the mail.
Right.
And then right after I said that, and I met with the Cardinal O'Malley, my son came to me and said, "Oh, we're going to have a baby." So that's my first grandson. And then my daughter said, on the heels of that, "I'm engaged." So this last year has been a wonderful, God-blessed year. So, yeah, so that's a little bit about my background.
Well, Rome is certainly blessed to have you, Teresa. That is for
you're
sure.
nice. You're nice.
We're preparing to finish our time together. Is there anything else that you would like to let our viewers know about your work, about the message, the mission?
Thank you for asking. I want people to know that this is still a priority for the Holy Father and for the Church as a whole. So even though you don't hear of a lot of work that the Commission is doing, we're finalizing a website now. The Commission members are very busy. There are 6 working groups. Each working group is headed by a Commission member, and there's a lot of activity preparing for the March plenary. And the goal, as I said, or the purpose, is to make proposals, initiatives to the Holy Father. And they'll have a number of initiatives to present to him next year. The other thing I wanted to just mention is kind of a little miracle in the making. This idea of the Commission came up in 2013. 2014, it was created. In February 2015, they had their first meeting. You live in Rome. You've worked with the Vatican.
Right.
Things like that
Don't happen quickly.
No. Maybe in 5 years or something, they'd have some statutes. But I say that this is a priority for the Holy Father.
Right.
And this is a priority for God, too.
Indeed.
So it's an honor. But it's a huge responsibility that I'm fully aware of fulfilling.
Yeah. Teresa Kettelkamp, we thank you so much for taking on that responsibility in that role. And we thank you for being with us here at Voice of the Vatican, all the way from the Diocese of Springfield in Illinois to Rome.
I know.
And we so appreciate your work with the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors. May God bless you, Teresa.
Thank you. You too. Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.